Dear participants, can you hear me? Is my voice audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Swati ma'am, are you there? Dear participants, the session will start in few minutes. Kindly join with us. Stay with us.
Professor Tina, am I audible? This is Swati Sethi.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
All right.
Okay, I think we shall start now. Just a minute, ma'am. Okay, I think we can start the program now. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
On behalf of Ganga Education Trust Degree College of Arts, Commerce and Science, I myself, Mrs. Tina Codin, the IQAC coordinator of our college, would like to welcome each one of you for the 1 week national level faculty development program on NEP and skill-based education pedagogical options. Today is the 4th day of the FDP. And the session of the today's theme is Industry Connect. And the resource person for the day is Ms. Swati Sethi. And before we will begin, I would like to throw some light on the achievements and the accolades of our resource person. Ms. Swati Sethi has a varied and rich experience in teaching and leading PG programs in management in prestigious institutions across 10 plus years as Associate Dean and Faculty, Program Design, Marketing, Curriculum Development, Industry Connect, and have been her strengths. She is a BA in Economics Honors, also a PGDRM, that is a postgraduate diploma in rural management from Institute of Rural Management, Anand. She's also a doctoral candidate, Faculty of Commerce and Management, Savitribai Phule University. She has been a faculty in various institutions in Engineering and Management College. Also a principal of Ellen Wellinger Institute of Management Development and Research, Mumbai, Associate Dean, Faculty in PGDM Rural Management. To speak about the industry interface, she's been established and managed academic and advisory board management with top industry representatives. The rural boards have presence of CEOs of the best rural facing companies across multiple industry verticals. Conducted Anand annual rural roundtable with representation from the best in the industry at CXO level across all verticals like BFSI, FMCG, consulting, agri, and allied, etc. Conducted annual rural roundtable with representation from the best in the industry at CXO level across all verticals. Okay. Actively interface with senior industry professionals to interact with students on various platforms like workshops, classroom sessions, boardrooms, visit, projects, and placements. Along with it, she has also published and presented a number of research papers. To speak about her accolades, she has been awarded from the Economic Times as the champion. She has been awarded as the Economic Times Champions of Rural Markets in 2018 in Education, New Delhi. The National Human Resource Development Network NHRDN Innovative Pedagogy Award 2019 PGDM in Rural Management, Rural Immersion Pedagogy. The Rural Marketing Association of India, RMAI, a national industry body for rural marketers, awarded SP Mandali's Wellinker's West School's postgraduate program in rural management, emerging economies as the institution for creating future leaders in rural gold winner at the virtual 11th RMAI Flame Awards Asia 2020. Ma'am, if I speak about you, it will go on to 10 minutes to introduce about yourself. So I would like to begin the session by welcoming you for this program for this, and we are very lucky and we are so happy to have you in this session. Welcome, ma'am, and you can begin the session. But before that, I would like Shweta ma'am, I will ask Shweta ma'am to take the photograph for today's session.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm here again to take your beautiful pics. So kindly please open your camera, keep your camera on with your beautiful smile. I would be capturing you all for the session today. Thank you so much, everyone. Swati ma'am, now the stage is all yours. You may continue with the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina ma'am, and thank you, ma'am, Shweta ma'am, to you. The most important part of the FDP has been dispensed with, right? The photograph taken. We're all present. And I guess we are today feeling the pain of our students also on the online sessions that they had to attend when they had to be seen by the faculty. And once photograph taken, cameras are switched off, and then you can continue to enjoy your life. I know it's 5:30 in the evening. A lot of you have had a very long day already, and probably looking after children, trying to have some time off, cooking, spending time with your partners, very important things to do. So we'll try and keep this session interesting and interactive. But first of all, let me thank Tina ma'am for a very detailed introduction, and it's now giving me a little bit of nervous energy that whether I'll be able to fulfill the expectations that are raised from there. Luckily for me, I've had the opportunity of working both in academia and industry. So about 23 odd years and almost evenly split between industry and academia. So I've been on both sides of the table. And maybe that could give me some reason to sit on this side and, share some of my experiences. This session is going to be interactive, so I'm going to request you to, at any point in time, post your queries, your observations on the Q&A window. That's perfectly fine. If your host allows, I'm sure a lot of you can even switch on your mics and share your observations. I think there is this is not an exam, so there's no wrong answer anywhere. All observations are most welcome, and agreements, disagreements, anything that you have to say would be most welcome and possibly more useful for your peers who are also attending this session. So with that, I'm going to do a little bit of a sharing of the screen. My session today is essentially on Industry Connect. And what we're going to do, I hope my PPT is visible and the bar is not. Is that the case? Yeah. Is that fine?
Yeah.
Right. Perfect. So the topic today is quite terse and short, Industry Connect, but behind it there's a whole elaborate sort of thing behind these two very small words. What is this Industry Connect? Why is it so currently such a hot topic in academia? Why is it needed? Aren't we as educators already so loaded with so many things to do? Teaching, mentoring, facilitating. And then when all of that is done, we're also doing the NBA and the NAC and the AICTE paperwork. So much to be done. And then we are being, sort of brought about to this point of Industry Connect, that you must have deep relationships, networking with the industry constantly, so that whatever you do in class is relevant to the industry through your students. So what is this thing really? We'll try and unpack this a little bit, and I would want your feedback continuously. Right? So a little bit, since I am sitting in this session today as a resource person, so I'm going to take a little time to talk about myself also. Two important events in my life, which were very impactful in the sense of why industry is so important to academia. One was when I, 23 odd years ago, entered the rural management program at this institute called IRMA, which is Institute of Rural Management. It is in Anand. It was set up by Dr. Varghese Kurian, who is known as the father of the White Revolution. He literally set up the whole, should I say, cooperative industry space, rather cooperative space, and the dairy industry in India as we see it, right? If you hear about Amul and how large it is, right? Such a behemoth it is one of the largest dairy companies in the whole world. Not just India, it's the biggest dairy company in the country, but it's the 9th largest in the world. It is, the way it is growing, will become one of the largest FMCG companies in the country. In fact, I think last year it had numbers to, sort of reach there. But the important thing about Amul was, and when he set that up, was that it was not a commercial organization. When he set it up, he said that the poorest of the poor farmer who uses the dairy or the stock, cattle, the cows and the buffaloes. They rear this cow and buffalo so that in the lean periods, when the agriculture income is not coming, they can actually, or even when the agriculture income is low, they can supplement the income with income from dairy, commercial dairy, right? Selling the milk, value-added products from the milk and so on. How do we make sure that these poor dairy farmers actually reach the market themselves, bypassing the very usurious middlemen that earn most of the income from the dairy industry? So he had a vision, and he set up these very big institutions and a very large organization which has continued to sustain and grow today. So when he set this program up after many years of setting up of Amul and the other institutions like NDDP and so on, he set this up with the idea that there is no ready talent, willing talent pool for organizations like Amul, for organizations like cooperatives, which essentially work on not a commercial angle, but making sure that all of its members gain from being part of the cooperative, right? So what he said was that since nobody really wants to work in rural, really wants to work in agri, really wants to work in cooperative, and if they do get placed over here, it's like a punishment posting, can we have a cohort of talent, a good talent pool, managerially trained, who are ready to work from day one? So the program in IRMA, when it was designed, had a phenomenal, almost 8-month long industry connect out of the 22 total months of the program. So of 22 months that we were in the program, 8 months were on the field and with organizations. So literally from day one, when you joined the program, you were working with the industry. You were expected to contribute from day one, right? This was a program that was never run before. In fact, IRMA was a precursor to most programs that are now titled as rural management. There are multiple in the country today and recognized by AICT now as a formal program as well. When we started this out, there was no content out there. There was no such thing as curriculum. There were no teaching tools. There were no pedagogies, right? 8 months of field and organizational internships. Nothing was there. So almost everything was started from scratch, right? And all of this came from people from the industry who brought their experience into the teaching program in the form of case studies, in the form of interactive sessions, in the form of hosting students for the duration of the 8 months through programs, projects, and fieldworks, so that when they actually join the organization after 22 months, they hit the ground running, willing and able to get their hands dirty, right? Really contribute from day one. So this was only possible because of the deep connect with the industry that there was, right? So the education was almost flipped. The industry came first, and then backwards the education was developed, and that's a very innovative way of working. And so the relevance was quite high from day one. Post this, I worked almost equally between the industry and academia. Currently, I'm at Village Square, which is an organization which believes that the young of today don't really want to know about rural India. They don't want to know what the other 70% of the country, right? Rural is 70%. They don't really want to know what is the 70% doing. Quite happy in their little world, urban little world. And whatever little they know is coming from mainstream media. So most of them will imagine it as a half-naked farmer sitting under a bare tree with a broken house behind them, right? That is what mainstream media is pushing you to believe, but that is only one story. There is a whole gamut of other stories that are out there. So definitely this story is true, but then there are stories where there is absolute developed rural areas which would transform your thought process, right? So at Village Square, what we want to do is we want to bring these young people, students like yours, into the rural space, right? Give them this opportunity to learn and get their hands dirty, right? So in a sense, I'm now on the other side saying, here is the industry. We want you to experience. Why don't you come over, right? Why don't you come over, experience the industry, write about it, right? And share it with your peers so that others are more excited to do the same. And in between the two, I was able to join the rural management program and administrate it for a short period of time at Wellington, which is an institution out of Bombay, which was a quite interesting thing because Bombay and rural management, people don't connect the two, right? Rural is at least a few 100 kilometers outside of Bombay. So what is a rural management program doing in Bombay was something that was quite fun. industry sits in Bombay. So essentially, the recruiters were sitting in Bombay. We wanted to be close to the recruiters. We also had student cohorts that were only from urban areas, metros and tier 1 cities, who had never seen rural themselves. So to be able to run a program where we ensure that end of 2 years, they are willing and able to go to tier 2 cities and downwards of work, right? Not Bombay, not the headquarters, not the boardrooms. Spend the first few years out there learning the basics, thinking and feeling like the people that you are actually selling your product to, right? Selling or compelling them to buy your product or service or whatever it is, right? Now that was a program where again the idea was flipped. We looked at the industry first. We spoke to the industry in many ways, invited them into the design of the program itself, right? Even before we had designed the program, we brought in the industry. We understood what were their needs. And that is how we even envisaged the program. The vision, mission, curriculum, pedagogy, structure, everything was basis what we saw the industry wanting, right? Because the perpetual feel from the industry was, whenever we spoke to them, was that ready talent nahi hai. Talent pool hai, lekin unko rural areas mein product selling karne nahi jana hai. They don't want to go into the rural areas and service sell, right? And 70% of India is rural. So you've got a huge market that you're not even tapping. But where are the people who want to work in these spaces? Where are the people who are trained to work in these spaces? So the industry was constantly saying talent pool nahi hai. And we in the higher education institution were saying talent pool yahan hai. Can you give them an experience, hands-on experience by working with us? Not just as placement. By placement, we have lost the plot, right? 2 years are lost. Can you actually help us to continuously ensure that the talent pool gets an experience with you, hands-on, gets their hands dirty, travels with you, sees you working, understands you? So that is what we were saying. So this gap is what we wanted to sort of connect, and that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. One is that on the one hand, that the industry feels that there's paucity of employable talent with relevant education, right? As educators, this is something that we need to target, right? The industry feeling that there is not enough employable talent who has the right skill set through their education journey, which is useful to them from day one. They don't have to think about reskilling their employee on day one, right? That is one. And on the other hand, HEIs or higher education institutions being able to find the relevant experience in spaces where their students, but even faculty are able to experience the industry, right? A lot of us educators move simply from our last education journey straight into teaching. So we really do not have that opportunity to experience, on the job learning or learning while we are working, real life experiences. So somebody like me who's been able to jump into full-time jobs across both are there, but maybe not everybody can get the same experience. But faculty needs to also have opportunities to experience the industry continuously, to be able to upgrade their own knowledge and skills so that they can then transfer it to the students. Otherwise, students are very quick, especially this generation, very quick to figure out whether you have a strong theoretical grounding alone, or do you have that real life experience which you can transfer to them. And once they figure this out, they're very quick to also appreciate or sideline you into the learning process. And we don't want that, right? So we need to bridge this gap. There's a lot of effort involved. It is not going to be easy. It has to be done at all levels of the education, straight from school all the way to higher education and beyond. So this is something that we'll speak about. I want to hear from you. I'll take a pause here, and I want you to tell me if you feel that there is this gap in academia industry connect. What is your experience? You can post your answers in the chat window. I will be looking at them. Or some of you can even respond. Right, so Mitali is talking about a massive gap. Anyone else?
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, you said that it is very much like gap in industry and academia, because we feel that you said very true words, that if we are not updated in our field, so students will catch us like you are not aware about the new things, and the same time they feel like that what we are learning, like from the this kind of people who are not updated. So that's why this is the factful thing that you are saying, that if we are connect to the industry in any manner, like for upgradation of ourselves, or for new start, like new techniques, whatever is there, at least we know about the criteria, how they are like implementing in the industry. So at least we can learn from the some kind of courses or something, which is we have to upgrade and then give to the students. That is the fact, and which we are also realizing this.
Thank you, Gayatri ma'am. Very well said. In fact, we as faculty, even before we look at our students connecting or bridging this academia industry gap, we as faculties need to bridge that. Finding ways, is it consultancies? Is it taking sabbaticals? Is it working on a short-term project? And plenty of opportunities to do that. That is something that we need to look at. Mitali has also written about graduates program need more case studies, right? So I assume you're looking at live cases which can be used for teaching in the programs. Yes, very correct. In education, students get theory knowledge. We'll hold that thought for a while, right? Very correctly said. Currently, the current education setup, even though we're looking at a transformation, is still very much the traditional faculty being the guru and know it all and delivering to the students, and largely that tends to be theory, which is also very much important. Finding a theoretical foundation to your students' knowledge is also important. But should we look at something beyond? So we'll talk about that. A huge gap in accounting field in practical life, right? I think that is true. Again, my response to that would be, can we change it? IMs have industry connect, other graduations doesn't seem to like they know the industry. I'm going to
Let
again
me
hold
explain
that.
that a bit. I
Yeah,
wrote that.
right.
So, actually, I think, like somebody already said, case studies. We need real life case studies. We need
Yes,
industrial kind of internships. We need a maybe simulation and atmosphere at our college. We need industry to visit our college every now and then as a guest or visit lecturers, because IIMs does that. That is the only reason they have good connect with the industry. And but
correct.
then we need to do it undergraduate. We need to also do it at school level, maybe high school level, because at the end of the day, they need to know how industry work and how processes work. And there is no connect. Education has no connect. The very other day, when same FDP had another speaker, she also we also spoke about skill development, industry ready, which never
Correct.
happens. We
Right.
practically we don't have practical sense of knowledge,
Correct.
only theory. Like
Right. So I think to a point you're right that some of the premium institutions have that deep industry connect, but I would say that they are premium essentially because of the industry connect. And maybe it is not possible for a lot of tier 3, 4, 5 educational institutions where they're in very small towns where the industry is really very lean. But in the age of technology, even that seems to, that sort of hurdle and gap seems to be lessening, if not gone away. I agree with you that we definitely need industry connect from school levels, right? Why not our LKG and UKG students also have that understanding? To some extent, I think new age education is changing that. For example, the other day, my white hair will not let you know that, but I have a little child also. She and her UKG class visited a sort of a police station to understand how the system works. That is a way of bringing hands-on experience, learning from the real life. Small way, maybe. My older child is now looking at design thinking and integrating design thinking into their project management. Think startup, things like these. So it is starting to happen, but we also need to remember that we are a country of a billion population. We are educating a billion population literally. If you look at the whole thing, I mean, of course, numbers will come down to age groups and so on. But at any point in time, we're looking at mass education. Do we have the bandwidth to really go all out? definitely necessary. We'll have to find a way up. So we'll continue with this. I loved your responses. I think there's a general agreement that we need to do it. We'll figure out how we can do it and learn from others' examples also. I just spoke of something like the education of the future, right? Now, education of the future is something we are hearing so much about, especially when it comes to industry ready, industry connect, industry ready skills, and so on. That is talking about education of the future, right? What is it? Some bit of it we're already doing. So we are already doing something called outcome and skill based learning. The NEP talks about it. Last 5 odd years, we've really focused on this outcome based learning, right? Now, that outcome based learning is essentially talking about not the number of years spent on the learning process, but what is the outcome of that learning, right? What is it that you're getting out of that education? And whether you are really attaining any skills out of that. Now, that is what we're looking at. It has started. It needs to be more broad-based. It can filter down. But at least the good thing is that we've already started focusing on that. As educators, I think we need to be trained first to start thinking, what is this outcome-based learning? Right now, we're also, I think last few years, we've been so involved in transforming the curriculum, and we've been writing program goals and education goals, changing our curriculum, writing those long teaching learning documents where we are talking about the education goals and all. It's been a tough journey, not so easy, because a lot of this curriculum is long standing, not changed over the years. Not that easy to suddenly transform our thoughts, and not just the material that's already with us. But anyway, we're starting on that journey. The education of the future will also be purpose-based learning, right? So something controversial, especially in our setting, is that not one size fits all. It should be customized to the learner. But again, let's remember that we've got a 1 billion plus population, and we've got one of the largest population that is young by percentage terms. So to say that let's customize our education, keeping those numbers in mind, maybe we'll have to figure out how to do that, right? The ratio of educators to learners at this point in time is not very comfortable, which you possibly experience. The number of students in your classrooms are quite large, and you'll be teaching multiple of the same course multiple times to be able to cover all of the students in that cohort. So we'll have to think how that can be done. Second, mission-based learning, that is education of the future, is in terms of what is the mission we're trying to achieve. Is it economic? Is it social? How can we incorporate that? Innovation for real life, very critical, right? Is our education equipping our learners to innovate, to think of solutions which are solving problems that are long-standing in real life, right? Now, innovation could sometimes be understood that it has to be a life-changing new idea, but innovation can also be incremental in nature. Can we improve upon existing solutions to real life problems? Even that is an innovation, right? So is our education doing that right now, equipping those students and the learners with the skill, or do we need to work upon that? That's one thing. And the last one in the purpose-based learning is that it's going to be tech-driven. I had the opportunity to attend a session in this series, I think the second or the third, I'm not missing that one. And the person who was facilitating that session for the day asked about Chat GPT, right? And how all of our educators suddenly get up in arms and say, oh, Chat GPT and technology and Google is disrupting our classroom learning, how students don't respect us anymore, like we used to respect our teachers who we considered as, knowing or fount of knowledge. Now they simply go on the internet and, find an answer and tell you that we already know this, or give assignments that are copied from the internet, or Chat GPT answers, and so on and so forth. To me, technology is going to be an opportunity, right? If used well. So while Chat GPT is at the fingertips of our new learners, it is also at our fingertips, right? Technology is also at our fingertips. Now, whether we will be able to assimilate that into making our lives as educators much more meaningful remains with us. The fact of the matter remains that technology is going to be changing and transforming the way we live, the way we learn, the way we behave as we continue to function. COVID sort of pushed that tech transformation into a little faster overdrive, but now there's no turning back, right? So whether we can keep up to it as educators or not, whether we can upskill ourselves to ensure that all of our learners are tech agile. I'm not saying that you need to teach programming in everything that you're doing. I'm saying tech agile, right? So that is something that will happen because the way we function, the way we work is going to change. So we need to keep up as educators to be able to help our learners. And the most important thing is that there will be industry relevant learning. The education of the future is going to be absolutely industry relevant. We as educators have to see how our students have future ready skills that puts them ahead of the employability curve. Not that they're employable at that stage of graduation from our program. Are they going to be continuing to be employable 2 years, 5 years, 6 years hence from when they graduate from the program is what we need to work at. And that can only be possible if there is effective, right? One is having industry connect, one is having effective industry connect. So we as educators have to think ways where we can have meaningful industry connect to ensure that our learners are ahead of that skill, right? So I use this term in the very end, employability, right? So employability can mean many things to many people. I've taken a very sort of commonsensical description of it from one of the ones that was available. And UNESCO says that it is the capacity of a person to secure a job, to retain it, and to be able to be on trend or cope with changing macroeconomic conditions, which is your labor market conditions, and also changing, transforming technology, right? Which will then help you build a career, right? So a career is a long-term thing. It is not that one-time activity of finding a job, right? So a career has multiple entry exit points from your jobs. It is possibly learning new skills. It is possibly assimilating new ideas. So what it talks about is our education, if we put it in the context of education, giving our learners the ability not just to find and keep a job, to be able to make that long-standing or long-term pathway, which is essentially a career, right? So that is essentially what employability is, what is about, and industry connect with the education space, with academia, is definitely going to ensure that the students are better employed, right? Now, let's look at some data after talking about employability, right? So this is an employability data that is coming from the India Skills Report. It's a report which has developed every year, and this report is developed in tandem with AICTE, CII, AIU. So all the relevant people are involved, right? So this 2023 report is based on a test which is given by students who are looking for a job. It's an employability test which is given by students. And so the result is basis that, right? So it's from a sample. But I think the data is pretty representative of the population as well. Now, what it says is from 2017 to 2023, the employability of the Indian students, right, Indian learners, has gone up from 40% to 50%, right? So there's a definite increase, which is quite, good. There seems to be a little bit of a blip around 20 for COVID, of course, but that could be for a variety of reasons. So we'll overlook that. So in a sense, it has increased. But even despite that increase, what we should note is that in 2023, only 50% of the respondents had the employability skills, right? Now that is something we need to ponder about. 50%, right? Half of the respondents had employability skills. And what kind of education have they done before that? Are the domains from which they have studied, right? So if you look at that data, the same report talks about that data. And you can just run down all of these educational programs that we have offered in the country. Seems to show that the MBA program and the BCom program, educational program, have the students with the highest employability skills or the employable talent, right? And then it is closely followed by BE, BTech, and B Pharma, right? So those educators who are sitting in those programs as facilitators, as teachers, that is a point to note, right? An MBA is the last program or a study program that a young person does and then moves into a job. And an undergraduate program like a BCom is the penultimate one for a lot of young people. Beyond that, they will look at further education, maybe a few years of experience, and then move beyond. So we're saying that 60% of all MBA graduates that took the test and BCom that took the test had employability skills, right? And closely followed by BTech and BPharma. The others seem to have a lot of catching up to do. So that is a point to note. Right? What are these employability skills that are lacking here? And how do we really reach those, bring those skills to our learners so that their employability improves, right? Essentially, that is what we study for, right? That is who our most of our students really are, right? Now, one is looking at where they are studying, the most employable talent is studying, and then where they are going after studying that. So 17, it was more of the core sectors like oil, gas, and minerals, and so on. And then we saw a big journey through the BFSI retail space over many years, right? In 23, automotive engineering and internet businesses is what is seeing the destination for the employable talent, right? That is where they're getting hired. So you as educators now have to figure out that the current year, that the year that went, if this was the trend, what is it that's going to be the trend moving forward? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You're teaching an undergraduate program of 3 years. So today, standing today, 3 years or 4 years, whatever that will be. Hence, where is my student going to be placed? Where are they going to aspire to work? And what is it that we need to equip them in terms of skills so that on day one, they're relevant there? And how do we ensure that that journey has a deep connection to the industry so that they can be trained while they study, not at the end of 3 or 4 years, right? In 24, that trend seems to be continuing, where tech-related services are going to be the big thing, infrastructure, healthcare for obvious reasons, and green and renewable energy for very obvious reasons are going to be the bigger trends here. Will continue to change, but I think we need to accept the fact that tech is here to stay. And we are using it as tech-related services. We're not saying technology businesses alone, tech-related, right? So we need to remember that also. So my question now to all of you is that do you agree or disagree with this data? Going back to the very first one, that 50% of the talent pool at this point of time is employable. Do you agree with this kind of data? What is your observation? Right. Anyone who would want to unmute and speak is also most welcome. Do you agree with that data that as educators, do you observe or do you feel that almost 50% of your population is not really having the employability skills?
Yes, we do agree. Obviously, everybody knows that. Everybody also knows that the education what we get and the job that we get, to settle down in the job, we actually learn job after we finish our education. There is no connect. And that takes around 4 to 5 years to settle in a job, and then we learn the nitty-gritties, and then we get promoted, or then we start actually achieving or performing well in the job, because we are actually learning. Whereas if we had been taught earlier on, then we would have performed the day one. With a We need to get cross educated, like technology as well as the textbooks or theory, whatever subject it is. Either you're like, for example, uh, some studies are called biotechnology. The very reason why they are connected is because both have to be hand in hand. That is what we feel like that. Thank you.
But do you think the courses like BA and BCom do not have the same employability? Right? A technical course like a biotechnology or a BTech or a BE, though seen data that says that only 30% of our engineers are really employable at the graduation. And one report says that 90% are not employable. That's sort of an outlier, I would assume. But 30% is something that was even spoken in one of the big UGC events. So I would go by that data saying that even a technical course like engineering, where we would assume the same things like a biotechnology course, only equips 30% of the pool to be employable.
Yes, we agree that.
Right. So looking at some of the responses here, everybody seems to be agreeing or sleeping, one of the two things. That's fine. So to a point, it is scary. Even if you agree, I think it is very scary that in a class of 60, bringing it down to brass tacks. I mean, making it too simple or simplistic to say that 50% of your learners are not really employable at the stage of graduation. A lot can be changed if we bring the industry into it from the very beginning. One of the things that somebody's noted is that can an industrialist be a part of the curriculum framing? Yes, of course, because at the end of your course, they will be the one giving employment, or your students will set up their own organizations and give employment to the other, and so on and so forth. We agree with even that. If they are not part of the process of framing curriculum within a certain framework, right? We're not saying give them free reign to do whatever. We're saying take inputs, right? That is going to bring the relevance into your curriculum. That will bring the relevance into your pedagogy. And that is going to change this number of 50% to a higher number, right? Because imagine if 50% at the stage of graduation being employability skilled leaves the other 50% to be reskilled, right? To be upskilled. That's a huge amount of time and cost to be spent, right? And that is planning, human resource, money, time into doing something, redoing something literal, right? So moving forward, let's look at some of the other things that this research talks about. That 50%, so one is looking at the point of entry, the other is that already people working, only 50% of these will have the skills for the future, the rest will need reskilling by 25, which is literally the next year. So as technology changes, 50% of all working population will need reskilling itself, and by 25, 85 million jobs may be displaced because of this shift towards technology, where machines can do a lot of the things that humans were doing. Now, one is that once you're saying that bring the industry into the programs that we're talking of, the BComs and the BAs and so on and so forth. But the other one is that once they get into the jobs also, there is a continuous learning process. That is what we were talking about, the career, not just finding and keeping a job, ensuring that we have a meaningful career from that learning process. So this essentially really tells us that even after joining the workforce, there is a huge space of reskilling and upskilling that the academia has to respond to, right? We are the ones. And how do we do that if we are not equipped to, deliver that content? So we as faculty also have the job to ensure that we also continuously upskill ourselves, reskill ourselves to be relevant for the working or the workforce that is already out there and will require a certain amount of reskilling and upskilling. Now, what are these skills essentially that we're talking of? So if we look at some of those skills, this is a McKinsey report, and it talks of 4 major umbrellas. One is cognitive, interpersonal, leadership, and digital.
उसका हाथ यहाँ से पूरा कट जाएगा.
Yes, ma'am. We have observations from someone who is doing it unintentionally.
Shweta ma'am, kindly keep yourself on mute.
Right, thank you. So this is essentially what seems to be also quite, should I say, sensible in terms of looking at what are the skills of the future, right? Foundational skills of the future workforce, right? Now, what it is talking about essentially is that 4 major skill sets of the future workforce are essentially things like critical thinking, communication, mental flexibility, right? One of them being this, which is the cognitive skills. And this could be as simple as saying, can you solve a problem? Can your person, the employee, look at logical reasoning? Can they think agile? Can they do active listening? I think one of your sessions was about active learning. So can they think actively? Can they communicate effectively, right? One is communication, which is possibly language related and having the right words. When I say effectively, it is that knowing that your audience, what kind of audience it is, what is the persona of your audience, are you able to deliver your message to that audience in a manner that it responds to the way you expected. Effective communication. Does your talent pool have that skill set? It is not talking, these four things are definitely not talking about knowledge that a educational program gives. That is assumed that you would have those, right? What it is going beyond those and learning about these things. Now, seeking relevant information. How many of us have given assignment to our students? An assignment that you thought over so much, right? You built an assignment that you thought was interesting, was research based, which a student would find interesting to do, and they simply used one of the technological tools available to deliver to you or vomit completely whatever they see online, cut, copy, paste as is, right? And how many of you have simply out of irritation cut marks that ye to main bhi dekh sakti thi jaake internet pe, what did you do in this, right? So when I used to give such an assignment, again I see an opportunity here. I would consider it a victory in some sense, small victory, if a student actually did whatever they want to do. So use chat gpt, doesn't matter, take that delivery of that chat gpt assignment, read it through, and see if there are certain areas that interest them that they would like to research a little bit further, and give me an assignment written in their own words, right? So in a sense, that's a very first level of learning, right? Remembering and understanding, and that. So we overlook this small victory, like I said, hollow victory. But in a sense, can they even deliver to you or understand what is relevant information? Do they have the skill to do that, right? So that is something that is simple cognitive skill that your learners will have to have, your participants will have to have, if they intend to be ahead of that employability curve that is out there. Adaptability, constantly changing world. Do they stutter when that world changes, or are they able to absorb those changes, find ways to move ahead? That is a skill that is there. Second skill that talks about is the networking skills, right? Do we have the skill set? Do our learners have the skill set like empathy and sociability, to be able to negotiate, resolve conflict, collaborate, teamwork, right? These skills are critical for the workforce of the future, because this way things are working, we are going in hybrid mode, we're going offline, online. A lot of population workforce has never actually gone back to office altogether. They're all still working from home, and there are a large number of industries which have said that that works for us. We actually want a lot of our work pool to actually work from home using technology, and that increases the productivity of the worker, no matter what domain they are working in, no matter which industry they're working in, as long as they're not expected to be on the field, to be seen, to be heard. Those are the kind of job roles that will still require personal attendance, but there are so many jobs that do not require that. In that scenario, do they have the skills to resolve conflict? Do they have the skills to collaborate in this kind of scenario? Self leadership, right? Do the future workforce have skills like integrity, self motivation? You do not need somebody to tap you, right? That is something that recruiters say on day one. They ask you that, are your students motivated? Do they need somebody in a higher authority to constantly give them a task so that they can deliver? And do they stop at just delivering the requirement of the task, or they go beyond, above and beyond, right? That is something that your recruiters at all points will ask, or continue to ask. Or even at internships, now that internships are almost mandatory at undergraduate level also, that is something that a recruiter will ask, that okay, we have a project going, but is your student motivated enough to deliver, or do I have to keep reminding? Does the HR have to keep calling, right? Can they work with other people who are from different domains, right? That is the networking skills that are there. And then the last one, and then again critical, coming back full circle to the same thing, digital skills, right? Again, point to note here is that a lot of our learners don't really need to be programmers, right, or data analysts, but they still need to have digital literacy, knowing what are the tools out there, knowing how to use them, and the ability to learn as technology changes. And not just our learners, but we ourselves, right? The industry always, at all points of time, has consistently asked that question of us, that do your learners have the digital skills to absorb ever changing technology that makes life easy, that makes our jobs easy, right? So if we are thinking that, oh, I'm only in teaching a BCom course, and I don't really need to understand, or my learner does not need to understand an AI or an ML or a robotics, maybe rethinking it. Knowing what it is, where it is applicable in their future jobs is definitely going to be an add-on, right? Don't need to possibly understand how to develop a robot, right? In a maybe a BCom course, but at least knowing about how the world works, assimilating these technologies, having that digital adaptability and literacy is going to help. The same report said that when we talk of these 4 skills, the strongest correlation is between a study curriculum and skill acquisition, right? A lot of people will say कि ये skills तो student अपने आप भी acquire कर सकता है, they are beyond the classroom. But the study says that there is the strongest correlation between the study program acquisition of these skills. So then the onus is on ourselves as deliverers of knowledge, as facilitators, as educators, to ensure that our learners have these skills, right? Especially soft skills like leadership and interpersonal skills. I think this was a question somebody had asked the other day. And this is a very critical thing. A lot of us are so focused on delivering our curriculum that either there's no time or no interest, or maybe even we don't have the skill to deliver these kinds of skills to our students. But if we are looking at industry-ready learners, industry-ready workforce, we need to be able to deliver these skills to those learners, right? Innovation and research is going to be a big focus. It is a given. And there has to be a strong industry-academia connection. Like somebody said, that it is not just at the penultimate or the ultimate stage, which is the higher education and beyond, but all the way down to school level, right? So very well said from that person. We look at another such study, says the same thing. It talks of these 4 skills here. It talks of problem solving, self-management, working with people, and technology. I think the 4 quadrants pretty much cover, but this was possibly a larger study. It talks about international level requirement. Now, this is something that I wanted to actually put a finer point on, that the Forbes study talks of the same skills. It is talking of management, leadership, adaptability, analytical thinking, creative thinking, and so on. But it critically says that when it comes to technology, being the learners of the future, the workforce of the future is going to be able to use tools to manage time and information better, boosting productivity with a human touch. So somebody in the question and answers read that ChatGPT can be used usefully and other technologies, and I would totally agree. The drudgery of learning can definitely be reduced by technology. The drudgery of teaching can also be definitely reduced by technology, right? There are so many repetitive tasks that we as facilitators do. They can be simplified with use of technology. We've seen that sometimes technology becomes a little heavy-handed and it sort of takes up too much of our time. But what the Forbes study is saying is that definitely skills of the future are going to be tech-related, but there will be some human skills that machines cannot deliver. And that is where your learners will be ahead of the curve, having all of these 4 quadrant skills of cognitive and interpersonal and self-management, and tech is fine. But what a human can bring on board, machines cannot, right? So an example came to my mind just before I was joining this meeting. This is an old sort of case. I assume all of you know about Walmart. It is one of the biggest retail giants in the world. And Walmart in 2017 introduced some 500 to 700 restocking robots into their stores. Now, these were essentially robots that roamed the stores that Walmart had, huge warehouse style ones that ran for kilometers possibly. And all these robots did was they scanned shelves throughout these stores to see which shelves were now running empty or low on product, and to be able to give this information back to the administration so that they could restock it, right? So why Walmart did that was that it found that this was something which was a very banal, routine, repetitive content, a human running down each aisle multiple times a day, noting down that this SKU in this product is running low, or this product is not selling. Maybe we need to put it somewhere else which is more visible, or this product is expiring, we put it in the front. Just tracking all of this is a very drudgery laden word that does not require too much of thought process. Okay, so let's now develop robots who can simply do this for us. And they introduced these 5 to 700 robots in 2017 across multiple stores. By 2020, all of this money, time that went into development, making sure that their stores were aligned to having these restocking robots in place. By 2020, within 3 years' time, this program was shut down, at least in the main Walmart stores, right? Why it was shut down? Very interestingly, it said that it was a disconcerting buying experience for the buyer to see robots emerging out of nowhere and scanning those shelves, right? Instead of a human doing this job, it was very disconcerting to see robots coming out of nowhere and simply going down the aisle scanning something, right? Secondly, it found that in COVID era, why 2020 is so relevant, was that in COVID era, it found that a lot of shopping had gone out online, right? People were not really coming to stores. So to be able to service these online orders, anyway, a human had to go and procure the product from the shelves. So while they were procuring the product, it was easier for them to note down that the stocks were running empty or low on a certain product, or it needed restocking, or expiry products had to be sold on a certain discount and so on. It did not really need a workforce of robots to do this, right? No matter how banal the job. So that entire cost, time, money, where first the human jobs went to the robots, again has come back to simply the same humans who can do this job again, right? So this is a good way to understand that all of this discussion that we're saying, that a lot of jobs will get transferred to machines, and humans will become irrelevant in these jobs. The human skills will continue to remain in requirement. They will never change. But again, we are saying that keep in mind that the 4 skill sets that are expected of the humans to remain relevant are something that we need to assimilate in our teaching. And that is where your industry jumps in. This is an experience that then can be brought into the classroom to be told that how do you bring in these human skills that will continue to make you relevant in the work. So I'll take a pause here again. Of all of these skill sets that we saw, big studies done, and so much that I spoke of, that are future industry skills that are needed, which are the ones that you think will be the most critical for your learners as future workforce? Tina ma'am, can we assume that the audience is awake? Or do we need to pick them up? Right?
Actually, I just want to say that there is something called as 3D printer. Okay.
Yeah.
And there were people who are mechanically doing some blocks or whatever it is printing in 3D. So it doesn't make any sense to remove mechanical skills, which may be critical to us in future, just to get it digitalized, everything, because after all, the robot story which we just heard, it actually wanted humans to make those robots that efficient, and then eventually it came back to human. So I think every job is critical in a way, mechanical or otherwise. So yeah.
So totally agree. Machines are kept in place. Yeah.
So that's what it is. Just because you asked somebody to speak.
So there's something.
I'm awake.
Hello.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, now you are.
Right.
Between there was a lag.
Yeah. So I do agree with the last speaker. But coming back to the same 3D, because this is what we started with. It's leading to, it's at the frontier of healthcare innovation, right? Imagine surgeries being done out there on the field with products that are developed right there and then. So the 3D printer, I've seen it in action. It was on campus, and I had the good chance of also using it. Completely frivolous product we made out of it. But what you could imagine is that it is creating the frontier of a lot of industries, especially healthcare. And I've seen that development happen over here. So we take it with a pinch of salt also, that, why is it needed? And, where is the relevance? But there is some application over there. And I guess over a period of time, it will all funnel down to only the relevant ones remaining and the frivolous ones sort of filtering out. So to a point, yes, I agree. We'll look at some of the responses here. Right. At the frontier, definitely. Robotics, AI, software, hardware, of course. Right. Good observation also made by someone about the media, for sure. Right. So I'm going to continue unless somebody else wants to give an observation. Okay. So moving forward, so much was done in yesterday's session. So what we're saying is that, is our education just standing at the bottom too in the terms of delivery, remembering and understanding, right? Or are we going to be able to pull it up to the stage of creation, which is the innovation that we set up? Move from the bottom of that pyramid all the way.
Excuse me, ma'am. That is
Make sure that we are at that evaluation creation stage, which is where what somebody said, that day one we are industry ready. Yes.
Ma'am, the digital automation says here that Swati Sethi's network bandwidth is low and we cannot hear you.
So technology is not being my friend today.
Very true.
Am I audible now?
no, ma'am.
Just give it a. I'm saying that the connectivity is a little poor. Right. I assume it is better now, and I can see that the connect. Right. Can I continue? Am I audible now to all of you?
Not exactly, ma'am. There is a glitch.
There is still a glitch.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems to be better from my side.
Maybe you can keep your camera on. That will help us hear
Right.
you.
Yep. Let me what was there. Yep. Let me just switch off the camera. Does this sound better?
Yes.
Yes, no.
Ma'am, you can continue.
Yeah. So let me continue with what we're doing and stop me in case it gets really bad. Okay. So this is exactly what we were talking about: industry relevant, focused on research, integration at every step of the way, not just for jobs and placement, right? Not just the ultimate point of the program. Now, how do we do that? This is entirely from my experience, but like somebody said, it is done best at the IIMs. I also said that the IIMs is the best, possibly because they're able to do that. So it's a cycle, right? So how do we go about doing that? Is bringing in the industry at the very point of vision, mission, and objectives. And now I think our accreditation agencies actually ask us, where is the environment scan before you started the program, right? Where is the program vision and mission? So if you look at some of the best institutions in the world, they actually talk about what their students will do once they have graduated from the program. They don't say what a program is going to give them. It talks about how they will deliver on a mission when they graduate. So when we talk of industry immersion into academia, or bringing that connection between, we're talking of getting your industry to come in at the point of scanning the industry, at the point of setting your vision, mission, and objective. You have the opportunity of bringing in your panels, industry panels. There is no limitation on that if the cost is not a factor. In fact, a lot of industry people, professionals, are more than happy to join advisory panels, which are not simply advisory panels. They are not something that is part of your legal process. That's a different one. Your board of studies, which are required, advisory boards, which you are expected to have, will help you actually move forward in getting that industry connect. So who do you invite to your board of studies? Is that person relevant in the industry? Can they bring in that long years of experience where your students can have a program or a curriculum or a deeper connection with the industry, not just at the point of placement, but also on that journey, right? And definitely your industry comes in when you're talking about course development, correction, and the outcomes of the course, right? So when we, like I said, a rural management program, something fairly, on the edge. When at Wellinger we started developing the program, we actually sent out our frameworks of each course and the entire curriculum to n number of professionals in the industry, right? We didn't send them a fully developed one, but that was a framework. We sent it out and asked their input. Do you think it is on spot? Will it be relevant 5 years hence, 10 years hence? What do you expect us to do in terms of making sure that this course is delivered in the most practical way? So sometimes input was received and a lot of time it was not. So that is something that you have to live with, right? 80-20 kind of thing. You have to live with that. And whenever we got input back, and it was something that we did not have in terms of in-house talent, right? So if a course was developed or incorporated basis some input from the industry, some new areas were covered, and we felt that in-house talent was not there, you reach back to the same people, and since you've already brought them in, they've bought into the program, you ask them and sort of take their permission to invite them to teach the very curriculum that they have helped you develop, right? So it is impossible, in fact, to have all of the teaching talent in-house. You have to look at the industry to bring in that. For a rural program, like I said, it had to be completely industry ready from day one of the program itself, not at the end of 2 years. It meant that we had to bring in a lot of, in fact, a big chunk of our course was developed in tandem with the industry. And in fact, a lot of that course was taught by industry professionals who had helped us develop those courses. So that was something they also felt an ownership of, that I have helped develop this course, I have helped develop this curriculum, this program. So I'm also teaching this. If not me, who is the person who can do this best, right? So that is one thing that you can all work upon if you're not already doing it. It does not matter. There might be somebody who say, oh, at masters it can be doable, but at undergraduate it is not possible. I would disagree with that completely. There are many ways to incorporate. Maybe it cannot be in delivery of long-winded lectures, but maybe definitely in course development. And I think all sort of supervisory bodies allow you a little bit of leeway to keep on upgrading your curriculum, and that is where you can actually take the industry's help. For sure, student selection at the master's level, a lot of that process is anyway structured. So you get your industry personnel to help you select students that are, and that also gives them a buy-in that I helped select the the cohort, and so I know who has come in, I know what they are learning, and so they are ready for me to employ if the time comes. If this is not doable, a student persona can definitely be helped taken the help of in terms of developing. Who would be an ideal student to do this course? Who would then be given a certain input? Who will then be employable in the industry? Teaching learning course, somebody said case studies are needed. Nothing stopping you from doing that. In fact, personal experience has been across multiple years that more than enough industry personnel are happy to write short teaching cases from their own experience. They may not be in the language you want, but that is the job of an educator, to ensure that that input that you receive from them can actually be structured in a way that becomes usable in your course, that becomes usable in teaching, that advances the learning itself, right? So a lot of practical case studies can be taken with the help of industry professionals. They can be used in your teaching, very useful. Interactive sessions, increasingly I'm seeing a lot of institutions, universities, and sort of putting structures in where interactive sessions can be done, where industry professionals come and talk about their own experiences, right? Games, simulation data, models, very, very useful. We personally had the experience of, especially during COVID, when the teaching went online, where we went out to the industry and asked if they would have some in-house simulation games that they use, which they could share with us. So a lot of them actually ended up doing that. They masked the important stuff, the stuff that cannot be shared. And they actually ran these simulation games with us. So gamification of education can be led by faculty themselves, but you can also reach out to the industry and see if we can have their product which they are already using to train their own staff, and take the relevant portions of it and in partnership run it for your students. Projects and field visits, very important. They help you understand what are the industry problems, what are the application solutions. In fact, I'll show you what we did with our projects on field products, where we actually took problem statements from the industry. We wrote to multiple people, again, 80-20 rule. They gave us long-standing industry problems, to which we then ensured that they were converted to projects and given to students to work with faculty mentorship. And when the solutions came back, the industry felt that some of it was actually applicable, and some of them were taken forward to the stage of application as well. Internships, very important. That old method where there is a 2-month internship, or what is being said, I guess, is going to change to the fact of long-standing internship, 6 to 8 months study and work kind of situation. There have to be ways to ensure that while the student works, the credits can actually accumulate towards the study also. This possibly needs to be worked out, but very useful for the industry connection to happen. Shadowing of field staff, leaders, and professionals, I think it is something that should be doable. Students have enough time. It's just a matter of getting the right professionals to agree to allow students to shadow them while they're on work, and learn while the job is being done by observing these people. And of course, the rest of them, which is anyway being done, which is your fellowships, placements, industry feedback, and alumni network, right? Any observations, please kindly put them on the chat window. Some of the tools that are in the education's toolkit, which makes industry ready, student magazines, which are digital. You can, this is recommended by the NEP also, AICT also recommends very much. Essentially, how do you connect with the industry? Is that student magazine is a great way to get people from the industry to bring in their experience in little nuggets, which is a student managed product. So essentially, a faculty is not full-time involved. Clubs that are again mentored by an industry professional, getting the right people to agree to this is going to be work. But once it gets on board, there is also a discussion within all of these new education policies about faculty mentors in collaboration with industry mentors being available to students. So maybe clubs are one good way of doing that. We've done that in multiple ways. Exhibitions, learning labs on campus in collaboration with the industry. In engineering campuses and technical education campuses, you usually do see these, but I see absolutely no harm in having these kind of learning labs in the non-technical spaces as well, as long as you find that right industry partnership to further it. Again, the industry sees the benefit in that, right? They see the benefit in bringing this and applying it on new learners and seeing whether it is interesting. So it's a win-win for both, right? And running down these, all of them, all the way down to industry projects, which are essentially long-standing complex problems, which the students can then help solve. Yes, co-op learning, very important. Different names, essentially doing the same thing, right? Research, especially very important. Yes, there the faculty also comes into play because students cannot be left to their devices to do research-based projects for the industry. A mentor in terms of faculty and also gives the opportunity to faculty to do the research as well, and then maybe publishing opportunities, right? So time is of the essence, and I know that I'm going to be stopped now. So this question we will hold. I wanted to look at some of this. This is something that you're already doing. This is from one of the universities, better known universities, which allows for many of these. I simply am strongly suggesting that make sure that you connect with the industry, no matter what course you are a facilitator of, undergraduate course, it does not matter. These are doable, right? Some of the toolkits that we also have these tools like experiential learning and project-based, very important. The industry really looks forward to these, especially the project-based interventions, experiential interventions. We reached out to many industries and asked them, can we place our students with your field staff for 3 days, give them a project, they come back, deliver a exhibition to us and show us what they have learned. It took a lot of time, a lot of planning, but eventually we were able to do that. Of course, the numbers for us were small, and maybe at an undergraduate level, the numbers being so large, a variation of this could have been done. But I think that the learning through experience, learning through project cannot be simulated by any amount of teaching within the classroom. These two types of learnings, I guess, are very doable when you have your industry coming into the classroom, rather than standing alone in the academia and trying to deliver this. This is something that I have been a part of. At the school level, suggestion was that we should do it. This is project-based and experiential learning. There's some deep somewhere in Jharkhand schools are doing. Again, they are connected to the industry on this. And my personal experience with the industry was what you're seeing right now. Students from urban areas taken to the field for 15 days, before which we actually reached out to the industry and asked them, is there a problem you want a solution of? Is there some research you want us to do? Because students are going to be on field for 15 days. Postgraduate students, we will equip them with the right tools to study, research, observe. So students actually, one of the photographs is showing a kind of exhibition. We reached out to many FMCG companies, and one of the problems they stated was that a lot of first copies of their products are seen on field. Not spurious products, but first copies, right? That look like their product, that almost are labeled like their product. So this research was then done by the student in a project mode, and then they came back and showcased this and talked about how the consumer actually looks for the first copies rather than the original product, right? Because those first copies are more to their taste, more to their aesthetic understanding. So you see some picture in the picture over here, you see something that looks like a Fanta. It is not really a Fanta, but very much looks like this and sells more than the actual product in the rural areas. So this was a project which we did with the industry. This is from 1 year. We were able to do it many times over multiple years. So definitely doable, takes up a lot of effort. But what we found was that this was very early in the 2-year program. Same students then were able to intern with the companies who had actually given them the project, which was just a problem statement. The company had not paid them anything. There was no stipend, nothing involved, just a problem statement given. They were interned with the students, and some of them, in fact, did get placed because of these kinds of projects in some other organizations. But the knowledge itself, this on-field experiential learning, project-based learning, was something that actually made them highly employable when the stage came for employability, right? So industry definitely helps to provide those skills. They understood the powers of observation, they understood the power of communication, the soft skills of self-management, research, finding the right information, relevant information. All of those skills were learned when these types of things were done while they were studying, not to be learned, on the day they joined the job. I wanted to show you something, but we'll move ahead. I'll take just about 3 minutes. Is that fine, Tina ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am. You can continue.
All right.
Yeah.
So I would say that since all of this is something that is something that is suggested to be done. Let's look at what NEP says. I'm sure all of you have read the NEP cover to cover, so there's nothing new I'm sharing here. But what we possibly see is that it is resonating, right? It is a good guideline. How we use it now is entirely up to us. The NEP definitely talks of experiential learning, which is hands-on application based. It talks of getting people to have, that is in higher education, creation of greater opportunity for individual employment. It is not just talk about ourselves being employed, but others also. And it also talks about how we as a education space needs to have deep connects with industries, NGOs, institutions, banks, or even professionals that are individual professionals. So what it is saying is that strongly suggesting that go ahead and connect with the industry in whichever way possible, right? It could be for internships, that is the easiest to do possibly. It could be for placement, because obviously the education is focused towards placement. But what it is saying is that can you connect at a deeper level with all of these, right? We also have this in Maharashtra. So I'm going to only talk of Maharashtra because this came out very recently, right? A mandatory setting up of a internship cell in all higher education institution, where it says that a certain credits must be allocated for internship. And it is not just that students must do internship, a internship cell must be set up by HEI. It gives a structure that it must have a governing council, chancellor, principal, whatever have you, nodal officer. So point to note over here is it is saying that within the educator's space, all of the decision makers and the facilitators must be part of this process, right? But it must also have a student coordinator, right? And it includes summer, winter, and semester integrated internship, right? Not just the gaps between semesters, which is your summers and winters. The internship can also continue, maybe anchored into a course or multiple courses, right? It can span multiple courses. So you can have something that spans the marketing and the sales courses. And so the learning is across these two courses rather than one, right? So those are the things that it is talking about. It is also talking about at least a 30 hours spent per week on internship and related activities, which could possibly be learning or a workshop, writing the report, and so on. Also being on field. This is new. Let's see how it really develops. This is what has been, the GR has just come out, and so we'll see how it really spans. UGC says pretty much the same, again resonating the same thing. So if your institution is within this ambit, it does talk about this. Interestingly, it talks about the MSME sector, right? This is also what we are targeting as the country. So even the country's administration is saying how education can become relevant. So if MSME is the target, make sure that your R&D cluster or your industrial relations cell set up within the institution and university relationship cells set up within the industry. They meet hands, they collaborate with each other. Easier things that are already in place, a professor of practice. I don't know whether your college has it or not, but something that is very, very doable. People with not the right qualifications of a PhD or a B.Ed, but have many years of professional experience can be recruited as professors of practice to bypass that basic requirement of UGC and AICT and so on, but they bring in this hands-on experience, their own personal experience. I think age is also relaxed in this, so that makes it easier. UGC strongly suggests that you attract the industry via its CSR funding, right? So that 2% rule of revenue and profits and so on has to be spent on CSR. You as an institution, you as educators can actually look for spaces in your industry where you want that experience industry to come, which is going to cost. Can you actually look at partnership in the CSR funding space for them so that industry sees this partnership and cost involved as a CSR spend, and you get the experience with the industry themselves, right? So something that can be looked at. AICT is saying pretty much the same thing. I believe there is a faculty internship portal also available now, so that faculty can actually upload their details and they can find internship with industries nearby, right? So you can look out for them. I think that's a great thing, because we are so focused on students getting the industry experience, we forget that faculty has to also do that, and that is doable. This is the student internship portal that the ministry has, AICT in coordination with the ICT. Here, the students can be supported to find internships easier for them also, because of course colleges with huge numbers of students cannot actually find so many internships and projects for the students. So while the private spaces like Internshala are available for projects and internships, even government backed portal is out there where they can actually find ways to connect with the industry uh, of their choice also. Right, with that, I'm going to stop with this one slide. I'm going to leave it right here and say nothing. I see that there are some observation here. A need industry also a mandatory part of internship cell. Yes, that is the recommendation given by the Maharashtra Higher Education Department. It says, and of course, the UGC states that the industry will set up a university relationship cell and the institution will set up an industry relationship cell so that the two can meet. So very much what you're saying is needed. Faculty internship will be more effective in teaching learning. Perfect. There are government-backed websites where now you can actually look for within your own space. But at any point in time in my 20 odd years of journey, I've never actually heard a no from the industry when the faculty says, can I spend time working on a project for you? I've never heard a no, right? It may be not of the value that you're looking at, but to me, what I started with, that your learners will definitely value you far more when you bring that real life experience. If it is doable, please find ways of doing that. Not doable, there are other ways. Consultancies can be done, mentoring of students can be done, and so on and so forth. I take a pause over here and thank you for your time. And over to you, Tina ma'am. I hope I am not too late in terms of the time that I have taken.
No, ma'am, not at all. Okay. Ma'am, it was really a very interesting, very informative session regarding the industry connect. It's a time for all of us as educators or facilitators, and we have to think about our students. Also, at the same time, think about ourselves getting connected with the industry and, lead our students into a better future. Thank you very much, ma'am. I now, if anybody has any question to be asked, can ask the ma'am now, or they can also put it in this chat box. If you have any queries, you can ask or suggestions. Okay. I now request Manika ma'am from our college to propose the vote of thanks for today's session. Over to you.
Thank you, Tina ma'am, for allowing me this opportunity. I'm so very grateful. And the best part here is I was very happy and honored to vote for session twice in a row. Also, the guest is, today has a very relevant point and worthy of it. I, Assistant Professor Manimekhla Iyer, on behalf of the Ganga Education Trust, Degree College of Arts, Science and Commerce, would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest today, Swati Sethi ma'am, who, with her various rural management conventions and institution experience, and an academia with having an industry expert. She is with us and she said a lot of things about industry ready curriculum and skills, the adaptability of it. She also spoke about bringing in teaching learning experience and beyond, wherein even alumni can contribute. In fact, alumni will make more sense because they have seen what they did not learn, and when they bring about those learning to back to the institution, it will be worthwhile. Internship should be made compulsory, like we also she spoke to us again. And yes, about CSR funding, I wish there was more than 2%. There are industries which go beyond 100%, like Bill Gates Foundation maybe, or Tata, which never goes beyond back on any CSR programs. So we can tap those industry and bring in them to get some training done with us. Uh, the best part, according to me, is where we lastly spoke about teachers who have transitioned from industry to become an academician because uh, they bring in more knowledge, experience, and they make this learning worthwhile. So this is what I also believe. Thank you again, Sethi ma'am, for all this enlightenment. Now, our sincere thanks to the head of various departments in our college for making this program good for us. Our technical team, our convener of this program, Assistant Professor Swati Chaturvedi ma'am, who's handled the event all the 5 days. We have with us today's convener, who's Tina Kodian ma'am. She's also our IQAC head. Special thanks to her. She supports all standardization of our college. I would like to thank our beloved principal ma'am, Dr. Bhavika Karkera, who supports and encourages us in these activities. Then the last is our participants who are coming from varied states. Uh, all over India. We also have one person from Dubai, and they all have been asking, interacting with you all through. Thank you all for coming for this program. Please fill in the feedback form so that we can give you a certification at the end of 5 day program. We'll thus now sign off for today, and we will see each other on day 4, that is tomorrow. Day 5 it
Thank
will
you
be,
so
right,
much.
Tina ma'am?
Yeah.
Day 5
Thank
and
you
a
for
final
inviting.
day.
Have a nice evening. Whatever's left
Yeah.
of it. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very interesting.
Bye, everyone.